is an Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Spoil Me, covering Veronica Mars, Season 1, Episode 9, Drinking the Kool-Aid. In this episode, brought to you by Rachel Eton, Veronica unwittingly helps a man be deprogrammed from positive thinking, liking people, helping his community, and being generous. Good job, Veronica. Not her fault. Also, she decides she doesn't care who her dad is. Welcome to Spoil Me. Welcome to the show, everybody. I am Natasha, and this episode was a little bit of a bummer. And, you know, I understand Veronica's decision. Of course, as a viewer, I would very much like to know. And I feel like knowing has more repercussions than just her relationship with her dad. But I understand why she made the decision that she did. I'm very surprised at how quickly everything moved along, though. And I didn't expect for her to already have the results like the very next episode after finding out about this. I don't know why I didn't expect her to, because she is the person to find out this type of thing. Like, that's what she does, is she investigates, and people ask her, I think this might be true. What do I do? Can you help? And that's her whole deal. So of course she'd be able to find this out really quickly. But yeah, I was a little bit startled at how soon things began to happen. The episode starts off, unlike the others, exactly where the last one left off, which is that she is in the parking lot of the prison after going to visit What's-His-Face. And she has the thought that took a little bit longer to hit her than I thought it would, but it hits her soon enough, which is that if in fact Duncan's father is her father, then she and Duncan are related, and she has to pull over and throw up. And she says something about, were those photos of me in the gun sight, how Jake finally stuck it to Dad, his old rival. I'm like, that doesn't even make sense. Like, I don't even understand what she thinks that theory is. Does she think that because this guy is like, maybe her, like, is she thinking that he did that because he's her real father, or because he's not her father and he's jealous of her dad? The whole idea that Jake was the one behind it because of this thing between her dad and him is great. It's such a nonsensical leap to me that it bothered me how long she sticks with that theory, because it just doesn't make any sense. Like, what motivation is that? I am jealous of you because you're parenting my daughter or your own daughter, but I want the woman that you're with, so I threaten to kill your kid? No. Like, I don't know. It just, that really irritated me, that like that was the theory that she came up with, because she's usually smarter than that. And it just doesn't make any logical sense to me. And especially like, to stick it to his old rival, that's not sticking it to anyone. Those photos were like, those were serious threats. Those weren't just like, I mean, the only thing I can think is like, oh, he's sticking it to him by getting mom to leave because she's so afraid for me. But like, she's not with him. Like, he's still with his wife. So like, I don't know. The whole idea just didn't make sense. And if she is having an affair and she caught them together at a hotel, like, obviously he's not real worried about whether she's married still or not. Like, that's not, I don't know. It's just that's nothing. Veronica, let it go. So she goes on this tear and figures out exactly where the person who took these photos had to have been standing. And she reveals that she and a therapist named Dr. Dave saw each other every Thursday after Lilly died at her mother's insistence. And then she starts to come across photos that are more specific. There's a banner for Book Week behind her, and she's able to narrow it down to a certain day and finds the spot where the vantage point matches up, and it's a like cafe, and the cafe is willing to give her the receipts for the person sitting at the table that she chose. So she's able to figure out who it is. And it's somebody who works for Duncan's father, which leads her to think that this gives credence to her theory. And it just doesn't. Like, obviously, what is going on here? The person who it's for a security person. And as much as one could say that it looks like there's a target on her in those photos, that's not necessarily the case. Like, that could just be, you know, this is her. You asked to see her. That's who it is. Like, confirming her identity for somebody. And at the very least, if they're going to these lengths to have the person in charge of security take care of this, then they would just, like, this has to be a bigger deal than just some, like, rivalry between two dudes over a woman. It's not like Jake is not, like, in contact daily with Veronica. He sees her all the time because she's dating his son. So why would you need to get photos from 300 yards away? She's in your house. All you, like, get a photo from inside the house, for Christ's sake. Like, that's just, Veronica, use your head, girl. That doesn't make any sense. So, yeah, she figures out exactly who it is. And I expected this to turn into more of a something. But the one thing that she does is calls up and, she just gets the voicemail that says Clarence Weidman, head of security, and just hangs up. And she does not pursue it any further than that this episode. Most of the rest of the episode is going to be the rest of the dealing with, like, who her father actually is. So the final, like, kind of assumption that she makes is that somebody was trying to blackmail Jake about who her parentage is. And again, they'd have to have proof. They wouldn't, just photos of her from forever away isn't really enough. I don't know if that's, like, enough to make it depends on the person, I'll grant you that, but I don't see her mother deciding to go into hiding because she's afraid that Veronica's going to be used as blackmail against Jake. Like, that's unless she really thinks that Jake would do something like have Veronica killed to hide his reputation, which maybe she thinks that, but I just don't see how Lilly plays into this. It's just none of this matches up in any way. And I wanted her to pursue more of at least what she had at her disposal at that point, which was simply that this is the guy who did it. Follow him, question him, hack him, do something with that guy, and stop worrying about it in the context of the affair, because that's likely not actually relevant here, as much as it may be difficult for her to separate those things. she kind of has to, like, lady. So she finally, she winds up sort of tricking her dad into giving her a blood sample. And she tells him that it is because of a, like, school project that they're testing themselves for. I don't remember if she even says if it's a DNA thing, but, like, she is supposed to use her blood, and she convinces him that since, I think it's an STD thing, that since they have the same DNA and she's not even sexually active, that it's probably even more beneficial for him to take the test. And he agrees to do it because she can't work up the courage to prick her finger, which he believes, I guess. I really do think that he knows that she's not his daughter. I feel like he knows, but I don't have a lot to support that. It's just, I guess I'm so confident that whether he knows or not would not impact how he raises her at all. So yeah. And when she sends it in and finally gets the results back, she winds up putting the results through the shredder before she can open them, which wakes him up. It's a very, like, weird way to handle it, I guess. But okay, Veronica, you are kind of a drama queen at sometimes, so okay. So that's pretty much that. Also, her dad bought her a waterbed as a joke because he knows that she's going to hate it, but he knows that she used to want one as a like little kid. So he tries to pretend that he's sincerely getting her one and that she's going to love it. And it turns out that there is a $10 like tag still on it from the yard sale. Her dad has some marks on his face that I don't feel like get explained. I'm going to back this up just a tad. But he comes in. He is in an amazing mood. And he was in a really good mood after he, like, kicked out Jeremy from that apartment that Wallace's mother owns. Something else is going on with him. I don't know what's going on. But there's something happening here that we aren't getting to see. And just the whole scene between the two of them and the whole thing with the waterbed was really cute because it is one of those, like, moments where you can be like, oh, dad, well-intentioned, but doesn't actually remember what his daughter had to say. And yet he completely does remember. He knows her so well, in fact, that he can play this kind of prank on her. And that's really important because I feel like this kind of mistake is something that a lot of dads would make. Like, men are often just not trained to listen the way that women are. We are taught that paying attention to other people in order to please them is, like, paramount to our being good people, good girlfriends and wives, whatever. And so that's something that we internalize and become hyper aware of. And men do not have that kind of pressure on them. So the fact that he does remember all of this so specifically is actually pretty, like, it speaks highly of him, not only as a father, but just as a person, So, okay. Then we have the Gants who come to see him and are trying to find their son. They feel that he has joined a cult because even though he is still coming to school, he's not coming home. He's staying at this, like, compound. And these people are, as we find out later, very, very self-absorbed, shady, opportunistic shitbags, pretty much. They don't care about their kid. They don't really care about his well-being either spiritually or physically. They just are worried about the inheritance money that he is getting from his grandmother, which, for many of us would amount to like $400 and a house that's barely livable. But for him is like $1 billion. It's like several $1 million at least. And the fact that he has gone off to join this cult as they're calling it, is really worrisome because they think that he is going to donate all of the money to it because it's completely in his name now, and they won't get any of it. And that's what they're like living on at this point, it sounds like. At least what most of their lifestyle is built around. Let's say that. I don't even remember what it is that his dad does, but it's not really important. All of it is just like, all of this has been dependent on the money that was coming in from the grandmother, whom they did not expect to leave it purely to their son. So Veronica decides that she's going to like take it upon herself to get involved in this. And her father is really, really firm about not going to the compound. But it turns out that this compound is actually linked to a teacher at school. So she gets this golden opportunity that she really doesn't want to pass up on. And I really felt for her. I would have done the same thing. There's just no way to have known that this was going to be the way to get to the source of the conflict here, you know. Agnes is saying the parents are living off of the grandma's money. I don't think they work. Oh, okay. So they don't work at all. I thought that maybe he had some sort of whatever job, and that they were living mostly off the money, but that he was at least pretending to like be in business doing something. But that's, wow. I just like, mostly when I hear about people living off of someone's money, I'm not even like mad about that so much. It's just, aren't you bored? Like, what do you do? Because then you have all this time, and I'm just, obviously, you all know how I operate. Like, I can't deal with too much free time. I need some, just like anybody, but what do you do? But, you know, maybe when you're wealthy, you don't have that weird pressure that I feel like you do when you are the working poor, to constantly feel like you are earning whatever you get because you don't have a right to it. There's a lack of entitlement that you have when you're poorer, I think, that makes you feel like you have to justify everything. So we have like this whole thing with Veronica remembering what Casey used to be like. That he was a really smart dude. It's not like he was like, you know, dicking around in class and not actually paying attention. He wasn't somebody who was like super, he was kind of so the scene that we see, and this could be taken a couple of ways, is why I'm having trouble sort of putting it to words. They're all in this like poetry class where everybody's sitting on the floor on beanbag chairs, which is hilarious to me. But they are supposed to be presenting poetry, and Weevil is up there, clean shaven, like we have never seen before. And he is reciting this poem that, you know, I'm not aware of this song. But we thought had, like, he was reading original poetry, and it turns out that it is a song by Social Distortion. And Casey is the one who outs him in front of the class, which there's a combination of things happening there. One, maybe Casey is sort of bullying Weevil, but also there's like a weird sort of, I don't want to say respect, but almost like he actually cares whether anybody in the class is doing something the way they're supposed to be doing it. Like, he's taking this seriously in a way, even though he's laughing while he does this. I think, and you could argue that, well, no, he's just interested in getting Weevil in trouble. Or you could say that it's because he actually gives a shit. It's kind of on the fence there. And it's an interesting scene for Veronica to pick when she's trying to explain to Wallace what this guy was like, because Wallace is saying, well, he looks normal to me. And she says, not if you knew him before. And this scene is, I feel like it's supposed to come across as like he's bullying, but like, I don't feel like that's really bullying. The kid was fucking with the teacher. Like, I honestly, as somebody who's a bit of a pedant, I don't have a big problem with it. Like, did he embarrass Weevil? Yeah. Maybe Weevil should have been embarrassed. Maybe that's exactly what should have happened. I don't know. So this is one of those flashbacks that I'm like, I'm not exactly sure what you want me to think, but if I'm supposed to just think this guy is a dick, didn't really happen. Anyway, Veronica goes to see his ex-girlfriend to see what she thinks is going on. She says that he's, quote, like alien lobotomy boy, that he has stopped seeing her, that he babbled about renouncing the toxic death style of late-stage capitalist society and unremembering the consumer siren song. I think composting came up once, too. Okay, listen. Real talk, real quick. We are in a late-stage capitalist society singing a consumer siren song, and this is all true. He's 100% correct. Also, I respect that he actually started to do something about it versus me, who just bemoans this and continues to live in it. And I have no problem with any of that. Does it sound obscenely pretentious and over the top? Yes. Is it technically wrong? No. It's not. But there we are. And Veronica is trying to figure out where all of this is coming from. Has he started hanging out with somebody new? Did he mention any new friends to you? And his girlfriend thinks that he's sleeping with the teacher, Miss Mills, because they were always like started going places together. He was working in the literary magazine. And, oh, that's what it is. Here it is. He started working for the literary magazine. And this is where I got, confused, because she says this from the guy who downloaded every writing assignment since the 7th grade. Making sure that I have this right. Downloading every writing assignment since the 7th grade. He used to think Cliff's Notes were for intellectual posers. So, I'm confused here. Downloading every writing assignment, to me, I interpret that as he's like cribbing his writing from the internet, that he's not actually doing his own work. But then she says he thinks that Cliff's Notes are for posers. So, guys, help me out here. Does downloading every writing assignment mean something different to you than it does to me? Because those two things conflict with each other. To me, the idea of thinking Cliff's Notes are for intellectual posers means read the actual assignment and stop pretending that you've read it by reading Cliff's Notes, because this is like cheating so that you can just have a conversation about literature without actually putting in the work. But then the other thing sounds like he doesn't give a shit about the actual work and he's just stealing and plagiarizing and buying work. It's exactly what it means, downloading. She's saying he's so lazy he wouldn't even read the Cliffs. Oh, wow. That's a whole other level. Wow. So lazy you won't even read the Cliff's Notes. It's for intellectual posers, so you're not even interested in pretending to be intellectual. You're just going to be like, I don't know, I didn't read it. I guess. So that scene where he's like outing Weevil is meant to be seen as just pure bullying, where I feel like they could have just used a scene where there's actual bullying and Weevil isn't doing something sketchy in the first place. But Nancy says being a real dick. Again, I guess. Yeah, probably. But I honestly you're up there reading like a song and pretending it's yours, I don't think I'd be able to keep that shit to myself either. Like, and maybe that makes me a real dick. I accept that. I accept that judgment. All right. So, wow. Yeah, he really did not give a shit. So the fact that he's hanging out suddenly with all of these, with this literature teacher is really evidence that there has to be something going on between the two of them that's like personal, because why would he be interested in her at all? It cuts from this scene, like Veronica decides that she's going to start writing poetry, and it is amazing. First of all, it cuts to the moment where, she is laying on the bed thinking everything over, and she's still got that waterbed. And so as she's sitting there thinking about it, she's slowly like bobbing from side to side because of the mattress. And I don't know why, but that just killed me. That was so funny. Y'all, this damn number keeps calling me. I don't know who it is trying to sell me Cigna dental insurance. Ugh, if they don't, leave me alone. Oh, Nancy's saying he's only a dick about it because he didn't write his either. Okay, I see you, Nancy. So I would be being very pedantic, but I'd be doing it because I'm like, I put in the work, sir. Excuse me, you're just going up in there and reading it. But he's not even doing that. And he's still going to be an asshole. All right, I see you, and that makes sense. All right, so Veronica, the attributes and style of crap teen poetry must be written in a funky color of ink, must include dominant themes of alienation, sexual ambivalence, self-loathing, death, etc. She's not entirely wrong. There is a running theme throughout this episode of the water going cold when she's in the shower. Not entirely sure what that's about, because I don't feel like that comes up later this episode, right? That doesn't get resolved. Jacqueline is saying, but it's also classist. What's classist? About him pointing out Weevil? I don't know about feeling like the action itself is classist, but it's obviously the whole, like, antagonism that these people feel towards Weevil is based in classism. Like, so, I can afford to buy my poems from the interwebs. Ah, gotcha. Yeah. Sorry guys who are listening to this. This may seem sort of disjointed, but I'm just reading comments from the chat on the side. So sometimes people are bringing up points that I'm not really like, not actually talking about in the moment, but that I want to address. So I'll suddenly like leave off talking what I'm talking about in order to address something. Okay. So the issue here is, as Nancy says, that they live in a shitty building with a shitty super and can't afford to move somewhere nicer. So there's the money issues being brought up. That's right. So Veronica decides to write this poetry, and it does get her noticed. The alienation thing we see in action when the class is meant to break up into groups of 4, and she turns her desk and everybody is already in groups of 4 and she has nowhere to go, which is one of those things that like is annoying, but also like teachers who say break up into groups of 4 and don't actually count it out and make sure that this would work before they sign it make me crazy. That is just base level planning, guys. Don't do this. So the alienation part of her poems may be a little truer than she even wanted to admit. So Miss Mills, after being impressed by her poetry, is interested in inviting her to this compound. Surprise, surprise, that she's involved with. We're kind of like a family. And when Veronica arrives, there are a lot of like warning signs. There's a barn that nobody is supposed to go into. There is this sort of like heart to heart around the campfire that everybody has later. That is like really, oh guys, I'm gonna tell you some shit right now. I was part of something like this for a short time. There was this program called Leap Year, and it might still be a thing in California. And it was supposed to be a program that you would use in between finishing high school and beginning college as a means of sort of learning more about who you were and what you wanted to go to school for in the first place. Because frankly, the idea that we go straight from high school into picking the degree that we plan to like build our lives around is insane. That's insane. There is no way a teenager knows where their life is heading. And the amount of money that we are sinking into that now, it didn't used to be the way that it is. And I don't feel like that decision, your whole life felt like it was hinged on it the way that it does. But holy shit, it's just bananas to me that we're like sending teenagers to like decide their entire lives in their freshman year. So I had done my first year in college and realized, you know what, this is not what I want, but I don't know what it is. And I joined up with Leap Year, and it was a like compound pretty much really in California, Northern California, where we made all of our own food. We cleaned our own like showers and bathrooms and dorms. We were self-sufficient, but also working on growing our own food. That wasn't something that was in place yet because it was fairly new. And the land they had bought for the program was like just trashed in a lot of places. There were buildings that needed to be torn down. There were buildings that needed huge amounts of repairs. And they were using us to help do that, tearing stuff down and doing like demolition work as teenagers, which I just think back and I'm like, that was probably not safe. But this crew of people were very new age. And there was a lot of talk like this around the fire, where people would confess how they were feeling in this really touchy-feely sort of, part of me is like, I respect that they're doing this. Another part of me is like, this is so navel-gazy and self-indulgent that it made me really uncomfortable. I woke up scared, is one girl. I felt like I was in a dream of peace and happiness, and Veronica has to sit there and not roll her eyes as he says, we believe more in the reality of pain than we do of the peace and happiness. I suddenly realized I was only conscious of my own voice and my delivery. I'm feeling you there, brother. I have to watch out for that all the time myself. This is scary. I'm 32 years old and I feel like I'll never have a better moment than this. Like, all of this kind of thing is 1000% true. Whoever wrote this dialogue did something like this and remembers what it was like, because holy shit. And it is the kind of thing that, as the kind of person I am, I do have a lot of trouble shutting off that eye rolling thing. And I failed to connect with a lot of people in that crew. There was about 12 of us, 15 of us maybe. And many people wound up making friendships that they would go back to for the rest of their lives. They got really close. And I just never had that happen because I didn't take it seriously. I couldn't take people like, it just felt like they were so full of shit. And is there something? My bobby pin fell out. It felt like there was a bug on me. It fell down my shirt, guys. It was terrifying. So this whole thing I just have such mixed feelings on it because I realize that they're trying to do something good. I realize that they have good intentions and that they are actually probably being sincere, but I can't get out of my own way when it comes to this sort of mentality. Y'all. So I respect it for what it's trying to be. But as what it is, I have trouble respecting it, if that makes sense. There comes a point, I think, for me, where a lot of this discussion and stuff is the kind of introspection that I just do purely in my head, where I think, oh, I'm feeling like this, and I'm questioning myself, and I'm asking myself questions, and then I sort of realize something. And once I hear people talking like this, I start to realize that a lot of people don't have that sort of introspection happen. They don't do that sort of thought exercise unless they're speaking out loud to friends. And I don't often need friends in order to accomplish that same sort of thing. And I say often because sometimes you can still realize stuff about yourself. But most of that understanding comes from me like tracking my own thought processes and my own judgments and my own like prejudices or instinctual knee-jerk reactions to things, and asking myself, why did I react that way? Why am I feeling this way? Why am I choosing this when I know this isn't good for me? And this kind of like outward group therapy session, I just can't get myself to be vulnerable in that sort of environment. I am not going to be honest. I'm not going to be as receptive to other people's feedback because I'm going to feel like you don't know me. So go ahead and say what you want. I'm not going to listen to you. And it's just a different type of brain, I feel like, that this sort of thing works for. But this does, like, Veronica winds up, she's still trying to play them at this point, and does this thing where she like gets up to share and then takes off and leaves. And when she goes, she like goes to that barn that she was told she wasn't supposed to go to. And it turns out that there's just a really scary horse in the barn. Like, she thinks that this barn is going to be the thing. She talks to one of the girls who's like, oh, we're dealing with the best cash crop there is. And of course she thinks that they're talking about weed, because why wouldn't you think they're talking about weed? Because that's how people talk about weed. And the girl saying that to her has to know that that's what people are going to think when she phrases it like that. So why would you even say it like that, lady? Because you're just going to draw people down on you. But fine, whatever. So when she goes back the next time, it turns out that it's not actually fucking weed. It's poinsettias. And she's like, all right, so maybe it's not the weed that maybe they're trying to sucker people in like a pyramid scheme and get money from them. So she mentions how she wishes she could chip in. And the guy is like, oh, well, we're not actually trying to get money from like our members. We understand where people are coming from. And then she even like thinks that he's going to try and hit on her. And he does nothing of the sort and is very like professional with her after his initial like hug greeting, which is just pretty par for the course for that kind of thing. So she can't get an angle on this. It just doesn't make any sense to her what they're after. And she goes up to Casey and like tries to feel him out and says that she made an idiot of herself at the fire talk that night. And he says, have you forgotten who you're talking to? I'm Casey Gant. I wrote the Jackass Bible, the Quran, the Jackass Talmud. Why don't you come back out? And he's like being really like sort of understanding with her in a way that she's obviously never seen before. And she's thinking to herself that, well, maybe I'll save this homely boy from cultists, which like he is a very attractive boy. Honestly, those eyebrows. I wonder what this actor's doing now, because I know I've seen him in a lot of other stuff like teen movies and things, but I don't know what he's doing anymore. He's got the kind of face that I feel like probably doesn't age well. And I'm wondering what he looks like now, 10 years later. So, okay. This whole thing, her dad winds up showing up to the compound after having expressly told her not to go, because he's posing as like an electrical, like somebody from the electric company or something. And he pretends not to know her in the moment because they are respectful of each other's covers, which I really love, despite how angry he is, that he doesn't blow her cover. Because of course that would blow his own, but you know what I'm saying. And when she gets home, she really is sorry, but like sorry in this way of, I don't understand what these people are doing. So I feel like I must be already in over my head because I can't see what the goal is here. And because I can't see, that makes me really nervous, which seems like the right call to me. He thinks that because there aren't swastikas engraved on their heads, that she's just missing the signs. And I'm like, you know your daughter better than that, dude. Like, so she says, did you plant any bugs while you were out there? He says, yes. Have you heard anything incriminating? And he says, nope. It's like listening to the Brady Bunch with a reggae soundtrack, which is amazing. What about your background check on Josh? Anything out of line? Up until 4 years ago, he was manager of a downloadable ring development team at Eton's. One day, without warning, he quit his job, cashed out his stock, and used it to buy the land for the collective. Holly's totally clean as well. So, nothing in these people's past. He's convinced there's still got to be something. But at the moment, neither of them have anything. And when she asks if you are interested in anything that I've learned, he says, I'm prepared to admit that these moon calves probably don't merit the full ATF firebombing treatment. My guess is they're just a bunch of tie-dyed Oliver Twists who scam naive kids to pay the bills. But she tried to give them money or suggest it, and they wouldn't take it. So then Casey's parents come in and they spring this thing about how my mother had a stroke. She's effectively brain dead. We just found out that he's going to be inheriting this money. And they bring along this super sketchy dude who says that his, as he puts it, if you want to say it in a vulgar way, I specialize in deprogramming. This is such a weird thing. Like, so obviously we find out later from Casey that his parents knew this the whole time. This is not a sudden discovery. This is not, oh, what an emergency we're suddenly having that we need to get you to ramp things up. This was the whole point. But they are making it seem like they didn't know so that their intentions look pure. So yeah, this dude I love this. He's described in the, you guys know, I don't know how many of you ever like watch shows on Amazon on your computer, but there's a thing called Amazon X-Ray where if you draw your mouse over the screen as a scene is playing, it will tell you what each character's name is and who the actor is in the scene. And this guy is identified as Ice Cold Man. That's it. That's all it is. And he's got like this black turtleneck on that gives him the look almost of being like a priest or something, but there's no white collar. And her dad is super irritated with this guy stepping in and sort of telling him how to do his job. And it becomes pretty clear later that what they are going to be deprogramming their son of is being a better person, which is such a bummer. And you can see Veronica like hovering in the background, looking a little agitated about this whole thing. Like, it just feels to her like maybe this isn't the situation that we all think it is, but she can't get a grip on it because she's so used to being suspicious of people. And especially this sort of situation, of course she would be. Like, I really sympathize with her not knowing where to stand on this. So, and this fucking guy goes and like shuts the door. She's standing near there sort of listening in, and he pulls the door closed, which she seems to really take as an insult. So to move things along here, we have Wallace, who kind of comes up to her and is worried about the fact that she doesn't seem to see the problem with this cult and seems to think that it's like, obviously has to be, as everyone else does, something sinister, and that she doesn't want to see it. And then we have Casey telling her about his grandma, and there is a girl on a milk carton. This story is a little bit all over the place, but there's a girl on a milk carton that it turns out is with the cult, and she reports this to her dad and wishes that she hadn't a little bit later, because it turns out that she has run away from like a foster family, and she's a minor. But she ran away because she was being abused, and it was like the third or fourth in a line of abusive families. So yeah, the whole thing is just really, there's a lot of moments where you think, oh, here's the smoking gun. And it turns out that's not. It's just another person just trying to do better, just trying to live better, and maybe having found someplace that they can do that. So then we have the people who are the founding members of this group, the Moon Calves, which is just so funny to me, with Josh at his grandmother's funeral. And Veronica comes up to them and apologizes for telling her dad about Holly. And they understand why she did it. They say they appreciate her being upfront and not to worry about it, and everything will be fine. And she talks to Josh here, or not to Josh. Josh is the leader guy. She talks to Casey here. He says, I appreciate that you being here. For no reason that I can see, you've been a real friend to me lately. And this is when she sees his parents and the deprogrammer like hustle him into a car. She treats this like kidnapping, but it's so the way her father reacts is just like, sweetie, he was at a funeral for his grandmother and then got into a car willingly with his family. It's not like they forced him into it. It's nobody put a frigging, handkerchief with chloroform in it over his mouth and dragged him away. They hustle him to the car, but he was coming over to talk to them. And it's not enough of a scene for them to really have a leg to stand on, And by hustle, I mean, they have their two security guys. They grab him and hustle him. They don't drag him. He doesn't yell. It's just not quite enough. It's understandable why she takes it how she does, and she should. She's right. But they've been very careful about how to orchestrate this whole thing. So we don't really find out any more about this. There's just a moment when he comes to school and he pulls up and he's driving another nice car, because I guess they said earlier that he sold his Porsche in order to donate all of that money, and he pulls up in a Camaro or something. It's some really flashy convertible. So it seems clear that he has bought back into that culture, and he just sort of nods at her and says, "Hey, Veronica, what's up?" And just sort of shakes his head at her, but doesn't come up to her and say anything, isn't friendly, and walks away with a distinct swagger in his step. And so the message of the episode is really that being a classist asshole is the brainwashing versus otherwise, which is kind of great, to be honest. I'm 100% behind this message, and I approve it, and I will pay for advertising for it. And this is the only sort of resolution, for lack of a better word, to this storyline that we get is just him pulling up in this car, nodding at her and saying, "Hey, Veronica," and walking away. That's it. It's very, like, carefully done and restrained. And I really appreciate that about it. And I'm very curious if he's going to pop up again, because we haven't seen him before, but he's just one of those actors that is big enough that I could see him popping up frequently. And there's a little other thing that I thought was really sweet this episode also. She has a moment where, like, she walks by Duncan and he tries to say hi. And it's sort of nice because they're trying to be friendly. I don't want to say friends, but friendly in a way they clearly haven't been in a long time. And she turns from him immediately with this look on her face, like, oh my God, because she thinks that they might have been making out and might be related, and she just can't cope with that thought. But when she walks away, he looks so hurt and so bummed out, because obviously he still cares about her. Like, they still care about each other. And it's such a bummer to see that moment of just, like, him reaching out in a way and her rejecting him so brutally. But then later on, she puts a flyer on his car while he's in the car, and he gets out and it's like a flyer for, like, Chinese takeout or something. And they have, like, a little, like, jokey moment that's very nothing, but also, like, kind of sweet and seems to patch things up between them. It feels like he feels that way, that it has patched things up. And I just really liked this between the two of them, because I want things to be okay. And I want, even if they are related, I like them as brother and sister works too. They just have a nice dynamic between them. They understand each other. They like each other. And they are on each other's side in a way that I don't feel like has been explored yet the way that it will be. So whether or not they can be together as a couple, even if they are related, they'll still make a team of some kind that I'll like. So I really want this to get figured out. And I really do want to know who her dad is. Like, I expect that, I really do think that that's not her dad, Keith. I really do think Jake is probably her dad. But I don't care about it for the reasons of, well, what are her dad, like that personal stuff? That's not what matters to me right now. What matters to me is if Jake is her dad, when did he impregnate her mom? Like, what was the timing on that? Who was she with? Because all of those logistics will matter in terms of if we think that the affair and her parentage is related to her being targeted the way that she was, or her mother fleeing the way that she was, all of that timing matters to figuring all of that out. So the fact that she shreds the results of the test is more irritating to me in that regard than about her getting closure on, her blood. So I just wish that I knew, and I wish that she hadn't done that. And yeah, that's pretty much the episode. So I'll do my weekly Who Killed Lilly check-in. This episode had like nothing to do with Lilly or her murderer or any of that. We didn't deal with any of that at all. So I got nothing. I'm still going with Jake. Also, I had mentioned at the end of the last episode that I was going to do a live watch of the next one, but I was mistaken. I thought that it was for the very next episode, but it turns out the live watch had been purchased for episode 10, which is the one right after this. So for that, I'm going to be looking at the calendar here, so forgive me. So for next week, I'm going to be doing the live watch at 3:30. At 3:15. And that's on October 16th, 3:15 Central Time. And I'm going to start the recording on it like very shortly after that. So 4:20, 4:25. And I'm going to have to end it sharp at 5:30. Like, my availability is at 5:30 because I have an appointment. Or actually, you know what? I'm realizing that's not even going to be enough time. So because the class that I have on Tuesdays starts at 5:30. So that's like, I'll have to shave this down somehow. I guess if I do the watch at 3:15, it's not a full hour of TV. So it's probably going to be wrapping up right around 4. So if I can start recording it just after 4, I should be okay. So yeah, but we'll definitely 3:15 sharp. I'm going to be starting, and I'm going to do that on Facebook Live. So if any of you are interested in watching, that's where it'll be. And then obviously the actual podcast will be on Crowdcast as usual. So those of you who want to come to that, that's when. Nancy says, depending on the photo, you're right about him not aging well. Oh dear. The actor that plays Casey. Do you think the V's dad mystery and the Lilly mystery are related? You know, I'm not sure. I tend to think not. Or if they are, it's like the most tangential, like the affair is circumstantial to a different connection that her mother and Jake have. Her mother obviously has to be involved because she got driven away and is in hiding. So whatever is going on has to do with her mom. But I don't feel like Veronica is playing a role in terms of being a pawn for blackmail or whatever she was saying. I feel like if her dad isn't Keith, that particularly has nothing to do with the Lilly mystery. So that's what I mean about, like, I want her to find out and like nail down the timing, because at the very least it will give us an idea of like who her mother was with at the time and what could have been going on to cause her to leave Jake. If she was like with Veronica's dad and having an affair, or if she was single and Jake was married, or if they both were unmarried and then they split up and Jake married somebody else. That timing could lead to other things, you know, in the news or in like looking at records of his business or something that could give us some indication. So the answer is not that related, but circumstantially related. Yeah. Is there anything else, guys, that you want to ask? I feel like I've pretty much covered everything. So yeah, thank you again to Rachel Eton for commissioning this episode. And again, live watch will be at 3:15 p.m. Central Time on October 16th, a Tuesday. And yeah, I'm just very interested to see where this goes, because I'm really in the dark here at this point. And I also am growing to like Duncan much more than I expected to. So I'm hoping to see some development with that. All right, everybody. Well, thank you all again for coming. Thank you for listening. Those of you who are listening, I hope you've been enjoying the show. And I'm sorry about how choppy it can be with me discussing stuff with the chat sometimes. But hopefully it's not too difficult for y'all to follow. And I'm looking forward to episode 10, so that should be something. Since you all want me to live watch it. Oh, shit. All right, everyone. See you next week. Toodaloo, motherfuckers.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.